Next up, we're talking the Houston Texans, who looked for all intents and purposes as if they were nailed on for the 101 in this year's draft. But then they managed to mess even that up, Rich. So give the Texans fans a little bit of sort of like positivity. What's good about things going right for them right now?
It's the start of the rebuild. I think we've had 2 years of, dare I say it, mishandled environment, bits like chaos. You've had the Deshaun Watson situation hanging over him. You've had 2 head coaches that felt like they were hired to be fired as such. So I think that Texans can now say, right, this is the point at which we're moving forward. And, yes, they spent obviously those early first round picks last year. We got a cornerback in Derek Stingley. You've gone out and bought Kenyon Green as an offensive lineman who's been hit and miss. But there's some pieces and 2 first round picks. Okay, they've not got the 101, but they are going to have the 102. I still think there's going to be a good quarterback there. And it feels like now this is ground zero for the Texans and you can grow.
Okay, so talking those quarterbacks, which quarterback out of the 2 of them would you think would be the best fit to go into the Texans?
I think that the best fit for them would be CJ Stroud, because I think that, to me, I think CJ Stroud has got a higher ceiling. And I think that the Texans need, they're not a team that's got loads of weapons. They're not a team that's got this great offense set up that Bryce Young can drop into and just be a highly accurate, competent quarterback. I think Bryce Young is going to be a good NFL quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. Whereas I think CJ Stroud has got a much wider range of outcomes. And I think that if you're the Texans, you've not got the infrastructure to support a young quarterback. So I think you've got to go and, swing for the fences as such. And to me, that's Stroud at the moment.
Okay, yeah. So you kind of mentioned the infrastructure. At wide receiver, it seems pretty much nailed on that Brandon Cooks is going to be gone this year. He was drafted as the wide receiver 25 in best ball this year, finished as wide receiver 48. So this really was the first year where he didn't pay off his ADP. Outside of him, they've got John Mechie, who we know didn't manage to play any games this year as he recovered from leukemia. And then Nico Collins, who was somebody who a lot of people thought might be able to take the step and didn't manage to do so. Do you think there's any hope in that wide receiver room, or are they going to have to make significant additions there to be able to get anything done?
I think that for me, Nico Collins, and hopefully we see John Mechie on the field. I think we can all hope for that, quite frankly. But I think that there's no world in which Nico Collins is a plug and play reliable fantasy starter. I think he's a nice maybe flex play in bye weeks. I don't think that the ceiling is ever going to be there and the reliable target volume is going to be there for him to be that plug and play starter. So I think that, at best, he's probably a, wide receiver 2 for the Texans. I don't think that he's ever going to be anything more than that. And I just don't think for fantasy we can rely on what is probably going to be yet again, over the next couple of years, a bad offense. I don't think he's ever going to be competent. You look at the stats. He only saw a 19% target share, despite the fact that there wasn't many other options. Despite the fact that Brandon Cooks was in and out the lineup all year, it just doesn't excite me. And I think that Nico Collins isn't a good enough and varied enough route runner to be able to be a reliable fantasy option.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it down the stretch. He was losing snaps and targets to Chris Moore, who'd been a special teamer for 6 years in the NFL before really ever having a game where he saw more than 5 targets. So definitely with you on that one. Somebody who the dynasty community probably seems a little bit split on is Dameon Pierce. We've seen this before with running backs where they come in with low draft capital and it doesn't stick year to year. He had a 72% opportunity share this year, which was 6th most amongst running backs, came close to 1,000 yards and would have hit it if he didn't get injured towards the end of the season. Rex Burkhead's a free agent this offseason. Do you think the Texans make a significant splash? We know there's a lot of running backs who are going to hit the market this summer.
I think I wouldn't put it past the Texans going out and finding a running back, whether that be in free agency or draft. But I think if they do, it would be kind of suicide from their perspective. They have so many holes on this roster and they've only got a finite number of resources. They've got a competent running back. If they go out and spend big resources on a running back, it's just, fancy suicide. Look, Dameon Pierce isn't incredible. He was a day 3 pick. I wasn't particularly enamored with him coming out, but He was 8th in yards after contact last year. He finished as the running back 23 in points per game. All of that with only 4 games over 10% target share because Rex Burkhead was there taking a lot of that receiving work. I think that if the Texans give Dameon Pierce that sole role, he could be that kind of sneaky, he's probably going to fall in around late to what we thinking probably mid to late 20s in terms of where he's going to be end up drafting at the running back position. I think he's got back end RB1 upside if he's going to get a 70% opportunity share in this offense.
Yeah, and I think Dameon Pierce definitely made the most of things at times. Like we saw lots of those kind of breakaway runs, and he didn't tend to get there through touchdown scoring. It wasn't inflated by that, like in the likes that we saw Damien Harris last year, who was a top running back because he scored a lot of touchdowns. That wasn't the case because this offense just didn't score a lot of touchdowns. So he was definitely the bright spot of this season. I think the only other fantasy relevant player going into the season, we were hoping that Brevin Jordan would be able to take a step forward, and he really just gave us absolutely nothing all year. And it was Jordan Akins who was scoring all the points towards the end of the season. Do you think there's any kind of road back for Brevin Jordan, or is that it?
I can't invest anything in Brevin Jordan. I think when a player that, let's be honest, he's not exactly got a list of incredible weapons that he's fighting with for playing time and targets, and when he's being a healthy scratch in his second year, I can't invest anything in him moving forward. Yeah, if he's going to put together a stretch next year of 4 or 5 games, maybe I'll look to invest. But it hurts because I was a big Brevin Jordan believer, but I think he's now on that fantasy waste pile, and I won't be digging him up anytime soon.